work for. Why do we think we see? The problem is that we associate either a big family or a lot of money in the bank balance or a status that we have in society as providing us the safety net. We think that will help us in retirement when we are off. We realize we have so many examples, like even in my own life, like my parents raised me in India. They try to come and stay here with me. They cannot adjust to this lifestyle. It's a completely different lifestyle. So they're actually living on their own, right? This whole thing about, raising two kids and it'll help me in my retirement, that's absolutely in front of your eyes. It's not working. It's not working, not just for my parents. Lots of our parents, they refuse to come here and change. There are some parents who are willing to change their lifestyle, like in terms of getting bogged down during the week, and then in the weekend they do everything else. But my parents had a very active life, and they still have an active life. My mom teaches a lot of music and everything else. She just found this to be a prisoner. She just could not take this anymore. So all these things about fallacies, like, oh, I have this like 3 children, they will take care of me. Those children are all away outside in different parts of the world, and you're sitting alone. It's just husband and wife that are working together and taking care of you. Or you say, okay, X amount of money will give me retirement. You don't know what that X is, right? That X keeps on changing. There is a zero, you keep on adding to it. At the end, you realize that X is worth nothing because that X does not give you any help whatsoever. At the end of the day, what you realize is the contentment and the peace of mind is in your state of mind, is with you, as to how you actually look at it. And that's why we say you actually, instead of putting the trust of your retirement on your children or on a bank balance or on society, put the trust in God. He or she will take care of you. Because other things are all not consistent. I'm not saying everybody's life is like that. Don't get me wrong. I think you have to do your duty and do whatever is required to take care of your children. But don't use the children as your retirement strategy. And sometimes the children will not do what you want them to do. They end up marrying a white person or something. Their entire retirement plan has gone out the window. Because that white person never knows how to take care of elders, because their family, after a certain time, they're all sent to a nursing home. Right? And that's the way they've grown up. So I'm not saying something is wrong or the other. Even in our culture now, this thing is changing. So what we are going after to get happiness, to get contentment, what the Shastras say is with you. But instead, we go outside in the external world, running after those objects, those relationships, and try to get that security out of that. And that security is ephemeral. It doesn't stay, right? You never know how long it will be there with you. Sorry, a very long-winded answer, but a good question. Yeah, where was I? I don't know. Oh, maybe I'll just give a quick summary. So we had finished identify ahankara, and then we realized that we are not the ahankara. We are the entity that is creating the ahankara, because the Chidabhasa is created when Chaitanya works on a mind that has vritti. And so the question was, how do I find out that knower? And that's when we went into 28, 29, and 30, where Adi Shankaracharya says that you don't need anything. It's Swayam Prakasham. It reveals on itself if you look for it. Just like in a dark room, if you have a lighted lamp, you don't need another lamp to show. You don't need another piece of light. The lamp will reveal itself. Because it's Chaitanya, it gives out light. Whereas a jadam, like a book or a chair or a table in a dark room, will not reveal itself because it does not have the capability to emit light or reflect light. And what we need to realize is that the body, mind, intellect is nothing but another form of a jadam, right? It's also made up of panchabhutas, out of which your chair that you're sitting is made up of. And these panchabhutas this jadam cannot reveal the Chaitanya. The Chaitanya is revealed by doing what we call viveka and vichara. And that is what the analysis steps of neti, neti, iti. was described. This is what is described in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where you look at, we know that Atma is beyond the Panchakoshas or beyond the three Shariras or three Avasthas. So we have to examine each Sharira and say, do the Shariras actually provide, or do they have the qualities of the Atma? In fact, you should write a table down there and you can probably put the qualities of each Sharira. And then you realize that each of the Shariras cannot be the Atma. Atma is something beyond that. And that's how you gain conviction that this Atma that I am, because once you go through the process of identifying the Ahankara, you realize that you are not the Ahankara, because the Ahankara keeps on changing by the minute, right? You are, even in your life in the morning, you play multiple roles. You are a father, you are a brother, you are you go to your job and you become an employee. How can you be each one of those? You are something beyond each one of those that is constant in each one of those from that perspective. The problem that we have, we do not take the time to analyze the events that happen in our own lives every day. If we just spend analyzing those events in our day-to-day life, we will gain a greater conviction in this knowledge. What we say we are, 6 to 8 hours a day, we don't even exist. Right? When you're in deep sleep, I'm not Hari. Right? You're not Anilji. You don't know who you are. Your identity is lost. And then the identity comes back when the Ahankara comes back and the body, mind, intellect is recognized moving forward. This is something that Vedas are saying, but this is something we experience every day. I don't need somebody else to come and tell me those experiences. These experiences are with me. I've grown up with that experience going forward. The only problem that we have is either we don't take the time, or we are just not interested because we think whatever the Shastras are saying is something that's not relevant today, which nothing could be further from the truth, or we just don't care. I think as long as the current role that we are playing gives us a lot of happiness or temporary pleasures, or all your wishes are fulfilled, we live that movie kind of life. We are playing a role in that life until something happens to our life when suddenly you wake up and you say, oh, this cannot be the purpose of my life. There is something beyond that I need to wake up. This is what Swami Vivekananda said in Kathopanishad. We are all walking in sleep in our life right now. Sleep of ignorance. We are all covered with ignorance, and we function in the world of ignorance. What he said was, arise, awake, stop not till the goal is reached, right? And what he meant by that is not the sleep that you and I normally do. He said, get away from the sleep of ignorance, try to recognize who you really are, and don't stop till you reach that goal. And that's what we need to do. And I think if you follow the advice the Shastra is saying, that ignorance will disappear over time and you will realize who you really are. So that's where we were. I think we had finished verse number 30. Let me see if people have any questions or anything that we need to follow through. Maybe I don't want to proceed forward. There are very few people in the class. We can just use it for a Q&A session. And okay, just ask as many questions as you want, and we just move forward, because I think everybody will miss the content. We have to start from verse number 31, right? That is where we were. So we'll start with 31 in the next class. And if you don't have any questions, we can stop the class.
We have a lot of questions, sir. But they will sound like very...
No, I've told you multiple times. I no question is bad or good. I think every question is a
sir,
question.
When a regular person faces a problem in life, at that time, few minutes we will remember, okay, this is like all the previous lives things are coming back to us, and we are feeling this pressure or sadness or unhappiness, all those. And sometimes we will remember that 1 or 2 points, and we will try to come out of that sadness. Again, the sadness will come. how do we remember that this is always it will come and goes away, and it is like a phase. Sometimes we will be happy, sometimes we will be sad. How do we strengthen our mind with the conviction that we should not feel sad and we should be happy every time? Is my question clear?
Yeah, the main issue that you have here is that when the mind is sad, you are sad. You have to realize that sadness, happiness, anger, jealousy, love, all that is qualities of the mind.
Yes.
It is not you. So it's like when you're driving a car, the car gets a bump or somebody comes and hits the car and it gets a dent. I know emotionally you might be happy, upset, but it doesn't affect you technically. Right? It's a fender bender, somebody comes and just rams behind in the car. Your life is exactly the same. You are the driver inside the body, mind, intellect. The driver is not getting affected by what is happening to the body, mind, intellect. You let it affect you because you think you are the body, mind, intellect. So whatever is happening in your body, mind, intellect, you take it upon as my problem. So the sadness that you talk about, it's in the mind. Mind will go through sadness and happiness. Now, the question of suffering is under your control. If you constantly brood on that thing and you identify that mind sadness to be your sadness, then you feel all the pain. Mind being sad is a situation. It is not you. There is a problem there and you can solve the problem. You need to find out what the root cause for the sadness is and then go after that, right? If you dissociate yourself from the problem, you are able to solve the problem a lot better. But if you take the sadness to be who you are, then that thing becomes like a mountain. You just cannot get out of it. You get depressed. And that constant brooding of that sadness in your mind causes the suffering. You have the power to suffer or not. You might not have the power if there is an external event that causes sadness in your mind. Now, do you suffer from the sadness is completely up to you. Some people, you look at two people looking at two events. One people will be brooding and upset. The other person will look at it and just kind of walk away because that person realizes that, okay, it's this problem that I have. I need to solve it, but it's not who I am. If I take my mind away from this problem, in fact, one of the things that we'll talk about later on is that's why we tell in our culture that if there is something that is causing you sadness, get your mind away from that. Either you say puja or go to a temple or go for a walk. Because if you're able to dissociate, what causes sadness? There is a vritti or a disturbance externally. That vritti is in your mind and the consciousness is acting on that vritti and it causes sadness. So what you could actually do is either scientifically, either you walk away from the event that is causing that vritti, right? That event that is causing this sadness. Or if you're in a situation that you cannot change the vritti at all, because let's say that you're in a relationship and you cannot change that sad situation right now, you can definitely affect how you react to it, right? You don't have to have the Chaitanya constantly reflect on the mind. You can get the Chaitanya to reflect on something else in your mind. Because the mind is nothing but a collection of thoughts. And that it'll break the monotony. That's why they say in our culture that if you're really sad, go have a good night's sleep. Tomorrow morning we'll solve the problem. Don't take any decision when you're emotional, right? Try to walk away from the problem. In fact, a close example is this. If you just close your eyes, and let's say you're very tired after this, whatever the event is that's causing you sadness, you go to sleep. The body is tired. In that time that you're asleep, you're not sad. That itself tells you that you have control over how do you suffer with sadness or not. And there is a visible example there that you still might be sad when you're awake because the mind is acting. But when you're fast asleep, because maybe you cannot sleep for a while, but after a while your body is just tired. It just goes to sleep. But in the period that you're asleep, you don't have the tiredness. You don't have the sadness. So sadness is not with you. Sadness is part of the mind. And that is something we'll talk about. That requires what we call a viparita bhavana. We'll talk about nididhyasanam. How do you overcome that? Because what we are all suffering is through a process called conditioning. Because we've lived multiple janmas in this world. And throughout all the janmas, we haven't really analyzed to see who we are. We think we are the body, mind, intellect. And we have to actually go through this knowledge and get the reflection, get somebody, a guru and a shastra, to teach our true reality. And the more we experience the reality, then the conviction in the body, mind, intellect will slowly disappear, which is what the most difficult aspect. Knowing who you are is not that difficult. Breaking this stranglehold of the body, mind, intellect as you is the most difficult aspect in this journey.
Thank you, sir.
Hariji, if it is okay, I would like to ask the.
No, don't ask for permission. Ask Ashwini. I have time till 9 o'clock. We are not doing anything.
No. Actually, what Anil was asking and your response, right? If somebody is in that situation, like parents are there, they don't want to come here, and we can't go there, even though we give everything to all facilities and all that. But how do we come out of, like, what is the solution for that? We don't go and they don't come here. I know it's not related to this one, but
no, I think maybe my situation is different. I have entered into a contract with my company that I go 3 times a year, and I go 3 times a year and spend 3 weeks a year there. That's part of my job. I just got promoted about 2 years ago, but not everybody will have that capability, right? So the only option you've got is, obviously these days you've got a lot of technology and everything, right? You've got Facebook, and you can actually see the person and talk to the person. But the only thing you could do is try to go there more frequently, or you just have to say, this is what the situation is. I can do the best I can to make their life comfortable. I'll try to talk as much as I can, but it is something that you can't leave this part of the world and go there, because your entire lifestyle is here. Your children are here. They cannot adjust in India. They cannot come here. This was something that we should have done before we actually settled down here, because all of us actually come here with that X1+1 syndrome, right? We come here and say, I'll make X amount of money and then I'll go back, because if I have a bank balance in India, I can live a very good life and all that. But you never go back because that bank balance keeps on increasing, right? So there are some people who have gone back, some people who have not. So this is a consequence of the action. You just have to accept it. It's not something that, there's no point feeling sad about it. Do the best you can to improve the situation, right? If you constantly brood and say, oh, it's sad, you can't do anything about it, right? Is there a solution to the problem? I don't think so. They're not willing to come here. You cannot go there. What else can you do?
yeah, that's true. I mean, not that we do or we don't care about the other people, what they're saying.
No, I think they understand. I think the parents themselves understand. Yeah. They themselves, my mom knows everything about this lifestyle. She's been here 10 times in the last, and every time she has come here, stayed 3 or 4. She'll come here with a 6-month visa. Within the second month, she will want to go back because she misses classes.
I know everybody is like that.
So she knows exactly what this lifestyle is all about. After she has experienced that lifestyle, she doesn't want to come here. So there is nothing you can do about it. We should have known this. If somebody had told me, see, this is another thing I tell a lot of my cousins in India these days. Everybody is enamored of the Western life in India. They don't know the amount of sacrifices you make to live this lifestyle, right? If I had known that this is the way my life will turn out to be, that is, my children themselves will be. I'm not saying all of your children are like that, but they're Americans. Their value system is different. They're not like you. They sometimes don't even speak like you, right? Imagine 25 years ago when you were a young girl, before you got married, if you had told me, somebody had told you, you go to US, you'll get all the material comforts, but your children will not be like you. They won't even speak your language. They will speak something that you cannot identify yourself. I don't know whether I would have made the decision, right? There is a lot of sacrifice that you do. You get a lot of material comfort. So don't get me wrong. They all live very comfortably. They have a great life. These days, that material comfort is out the window. In the 80s and 90s, I can understand. These days, all these companies are in India, right? You can work for Google in India and still have a great lifestyle. You can have a great work life. You can. When I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, coming to US was the only option, right? These days, it's not that way. But we all come because we think we make a lot of money. Actually, at the end of the day, we don't really make too much money because there are a lot of expenses here that the Indians don't understand. Right?
Exactly.
The concept of insurance, that insurance
Health
concept is not
insurance.
there, right? There is so much additional expenditure here, which does not, the amount, they all look at, oh, you make X amount of dollars, multiply that by 80, that's the amount of money you're making. They don't realize the amount of taxes, right?
Yes,
A lot of stuff in
Yes,
India
$7.
is given
Yeah.
in kind. They're not given, because I evaluated going to India and things didn't work out. But if you go to a very high level there, they give you a house, they give you a car, they give you a servant, they give you Mali. You don't, your comp is not include all that money. All that is paid in kind to you. Whereas here, they give you a lump sum and you pay for everything. And you're getting taxed on the bigger amount. There you're getting taxed on a much lower amount because all those things are already taken care of. They have a provident fund or whatever, all that thing. There is a lot of, see, the thing is that we just get enamored by, oh, having a car. You don't realize car is not a luxury here. It's a necessity.
It's a necessity.
Without car, you can't live.
Right.
I would rather live in India and take a bus, right? Or take an auto, wherever I want to go. Maintaining a car is a big problem. You have to pay insurance, that thing breaks down, you have to go get it fixed. Everything in this country, you have to do yourself.
Right.
Unless you're a CEO and you make millions of dollars, it's very, very difficult to get help in the house, right? In India, after a certain point, you can have a cook, you can have a Mali, you can have Aya for the kids. People in my level in India, they have a very comfortable life, especially the women folk, right? Because there's a lot of people hanging around in the house. It's like a mini factory inside the house. We don't have that capability. We think this lifestyle is great. In my opinion, I think with all our education, the kind of lifestyle you can get in India now is far higher than what you get here. Because even at 70 years old, I have to do everything myself. Rarely I can get somebody to come and wash the dishes for me. Right? It's lots of compromises you make. I don't think it was explained to me very well, but at that time when I got out of IIT, there's no option. I wanted to come and study higher. And that is the only reason I came, and then I got sucked into this lifestyle and I couldn't get out of it. But I tell the younger generation that there is nothing in India, in here, that you can't do it in India. And in fact, I would say India is growing faster on an economic basis, and it's evolving very quickly. So if you're in technology and you want to start up, there's a lots of opportunities in India. So what I tell my cousins here is that try to go to India regularly and get familiar with it, because after 20 years, you might be going back to India. India might be a bigger economy than the US.
Yeah.
So you might be using your heritage to go back home. So anyway, I'm not, these are things that I've thought through a lot, as you can probably see. But if I had to relive my life again, I would never step into this world.
That's true, sir. Every bit is like we are all on the same boat.
Yeah, we sucked into this thing because of enamor. I think after a while, you look at it, the kind of education we all have, we'll get a pretty good lifestyle in.
But
with workers helping you. You don't have to do all the work yourself. You will have a driver who will drive you everywhere. I understand there's no traffic in Bangalore, but my friend is reading the paper when he's sitting in the car. I'm still driving. I have to focus on the road.
True.
I can at least listen to Swamiji's lectures when I'm in the car. That guy is driving. It might take me an hour and a half to get there, but I can finish some additional stuff. But anyway, let's not go there. But to be honest with you, I think you have to recognize that there are certain situations that you cannot change. You have to accept it and move forward. There's no point brooding over it. And I think that's where you have to pray to God to say, what are the situations I can change? What are the situations I cannot change? And if you cannot change, the best way to move forward is to accept it and say, this is the will of God, and live a comfortable life. Because if something you cannot change and you constantly keep on thinking about it, you make your life miserable even here, right? And that's something that over time you will realize.
But still, there is not that we have that solution. We can leave everything and go, right? As per the Vedanta, that's what society says.
No, you remember one thing. Vedanta first says you need to do your dharma, right? In fact, Chinmaya Mission, we always talk about, like, suddenly there are people who have, I know some people in my family who suddenly fell enlightened, and he just walked out of the house and was sitting in Ramanashram, right? And the family had to suffer. He didn't provide for the family. He just said, no, I've got this calling or whatever. We all have the calling. If I had a chance, I would love to do this 24/7, right?
Yeah.
But I'm kind of but what we ought to realize, and this is something that I'm doing very, very carefully, is that don't get sucked too much into this world, right? You do the grahastha thing, take care of your family till they are on their own. Then try to move out and try to focus. That's what the Vanaprastha stage is. Try to get out of the responsibilities of the world and focus, take more time to pursue this self-knowledge, to pursue the knowledge of the Vedanta. And then when you get to sannyasa, that's your 24/7 job. But the Vanaprastha stage is kind of the stage when you're dropping the day-to-day responsibilities and move forward. When you drop the day-to-day responsibilities, it comes with certain problems. You need to understand that. Like, for example, this happens in every household. As long as the father is working, he or she will get all the respect, right? The paper comes in, the father takes the paper first, he reads or whatever. Tomorrow the father retires, the son will say, oh, you're just at home anyway, I'll read the paper first, I need to eat first. Everything has to revolve around the son who is going to work. And it might hurt your ego, right? 30 years, you've been the prime guy in the house. Whatever you say goes. Now it doesn't happen. You're not the main person in the house. You have to be willing to take that road. Right? You need to realize that I'm not in the grahastha stage. I'm not running this household, because running the household has its own set of responsibilities. Except, I'm sure if you raise your kids well, they're not going to make you hungry and not give you food or shelter or whatever. The thing that might happen is they might not listen to what you're saying. They will have their own way of doing things, and you cannot say, oh, this is it. This is the way it has to be done. If it's not done, you get out of my house. All the stuff. You know how the ego can come involved. That has to be given away. That's what Vanaprastha is all about. The ahankara should be slowly withdrawn. The grasp of ahankara that you have should slowly be given away. And then as you get into sannyasa, so when you're at the Vanaprastha stage, attend more of these classes, read a lot of books, attend satsangs, they have the week-long camps in Chinmaya Mission or in any of the places. Spend a week reading a book, doing meditation. It gives you the opportunity to slowly kind of break the monotony, break the power hold of that ego on your life overall. There are 4 avasthas given in our culture. We don't practice the last 2 avasthas. We are always in grihastha. Right? I've talked to you about how after the children are born, we start looking for the children's marriage. And then after the marriage is done, they have to get kids at a certain time frame. If that doesn't happen, then there's a bigger problem. And if the kids get there, if you get a grandson, then you start worrying about their education and their college. You start saving money and allocate it. So it's just like there is no end to it.
End to it, yeah.
Right? It just keeps on going. You have to realize that there is a certain amount of duty. In fact, this is what Gurudev always used to tell us. Children are like, you are like a trustee of your children. You're not your parents of the children. As long as the child is 18 or 22 or whatever the time frame is, till the child is on their own, you take care of the child and you provide the resources. After that, they're on their own. They come and ask your guidance, be happy that you've done, but don't get involved and say, do it exactly the way I want, which our parents do quite very well. They put you on an emotional bandwagon, saying that I did all these things for you. You can't even do so much. You can't marry the girl that I want or the boy I want. I wanted you to be a doctor. You ended up being I had this case in my lifestyle. Like we hire summer interns. There's a lot of an Harvard MBA guy came and he was working with me, an Indian guy. And after 2 months, I just took him to lunch at the last day. And we were just talking, and then I told him, your parents should be very happy that you've done so well and you got the qualification, you get a great job after this. He said, my parents are very disappointed in me because my whole family is full of doctors. I'm the only guy who's not a doctor. So it tells you that
Poor guy.
that's the way our life is, right? The parents want you to do something, and if you don't do it, they get upset.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
No problem. Rupaji, how's California treating you? Good? You're enjoying the weather?
I'm sorry, sir. Yeah, it's nice, sir. It's a little chilly, actually, always.
You're in Livermore?
Yeah, yeah. Just 10 miles, 10 miles east to that, sir.
10 miles east of Livermore.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're on that 205 and then
Yeah.
Tracy.
Oh, you know those roads
I
very
lived
well.
there. I lived in Pleasanton for 6 years. So I know that area.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there are
Yeah.
a lot of windmills and all that on top.
Yeah, yeah. Lot of windmills, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. When we used to come from LA or Las Vegas or whatever, or Yosemite,
Correct. Yeah.
you see the windmills and you're close to home.
That's correct. Yeah, I live there, sir.
Okay. No, it's a good, nice place. It gets hot in summer, so just
Yeah.
it's quite hot in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Livermore temple had a Kumbhabhishekam recently, maybe a month ago or something. My brother and sister-in-law used to live in Castro Valley. Now they've moved to Saratoga. So they keep me updated on what's happening. We used to live in Castro Valley for a while, and then Pleasanton and then Castro Valley. I have a lot of friends in that area. Dublin,
Nice.
and then on this side, Danville and Walnut Creek on that 680 road.
Nice.
Yeah, I know that area very, very well.
Very nice.
It's a great place. It's a very good place.
Yes.
People who normally go there never leave. That's what I was told. I used to be on the East Coast. I went to the West Coast, but my job is on Wall Street. Wall Street happens to be in New York, so I had to come back.
Sir.
Anything else? If you don't have any questions, yeah, go ahead. If somebody has a question, we can
You
discuss.
have your dinner, sir.
Oh, okay. No. I'm not going to have dinner. I'm committed to you till 9 o'clock. So till 9 o'clock, my time is your time. In your case, 6 o'clock. But if you don't have any questions, we can obviously, you don't have to stare at each other's faces. We can do other things.
I don't have any question, but just a comment. Like, as I go through this diversity, inclusion, equity, when I look at spiritual, like what Vedanta teaches, if people follow that, I think there is no need for that kind of. Right now, it's a very polarized in the current environment. I don't know why people are not started, whether in universities or like as part of like when they are educating or training people, take from this.
Okay, I'll tell you a very important lesson that I learned very early in my life. You cannot even control your own wife. Forget about controlling the world, right? Or your own family, your own children. They do what they want to do, right? What Vedanta says is what you can do is control how you interact with the world. That's what you should focus on. Forget about these problems were there even when Vedas were there. Like you had Kauravas, Pandavas fighting, and all those fighting was always there, right? In spite of that, we had rishis and Vedavyasajis who wrote all these kinds of books. So what you need to realize is that what you can control is what you can work on, right? The things, I know it pains to see all these kinds of, again, I don't want to get political, but there's obviously a lot of conflicts between Republicans and Democrats, and each one is in a different camp altogether. You just pray to God, hopefully in each one of them, there's a Messiah who can bring it together. But first of all, ask this question, can you do anything about it? And there's virtually nothing I can do about it, right? I don't even share their culture or anything else of that kind. So the only thing I can do is how do I live in this environment and focus more on trying to learn who I am, right? What I can control is my reaction to the world that I live in. I can't control it. I can't do anything else. Worrying about all that is just a waste of time.
Makes sense.
So, Anilji, Chinmay in California, Chinmay Mission Swamijis, they all go to Stanford, Berkeley to teach Vedanta. I think, yeah, it is a weekly course. I don't know, it's a main course or whatever, but there are students. They are teaching. Yeah, they are encouraging. You know, again, to Hari sir's point of view, yeah, it's about them making a lifetime decision on pursuing it or not, right? But they are giving opportunity. I know even they go to MIT and other colleges, other universities too, right? They do go.
One thing you should all realize is that we should have done some good karmas in our prior lives that we're getting exposed to this knowledge, right? A lot of the people in this world don't even find out about this kind of scriptures and the knowledge in the scriptures, let alone. And they kind of live their entire life without knowing anything of this. Actually, if you read some of these concepts, and again, for me, music is a very important aspect, especially Carnatic music. Then when you go to the temples and see how the temples were constructed, how the idols were constructed, it really reveals a different aspect. Like all the rituals that they do in the temple, they all stand for something. They're not done just for the sake of doing it. They all have a purpose, which is described in the Karma Kandas, and they go and do it that way. So what I'm trying to say is everything in our culture is linked, but because of our ignorance of any one of those aspects, we kind of isolate and throw a lot of them as something that doesn't have any significance, or it is ritualistic or traditional or whatever that is. So all the rituals are essentially supposed to be done to control your mind, to essentially get your mind to have those sixfold qualities that we talked about, so that you can be ready for this knowledge, ready for Brahma Vidya. Anything else?
I don't have any other questions. So, Hari ji.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
I'm good, sir.
All right. If we are good, then we'll stop. Everybody can go a little early. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. All of you have a great week, and we'll meet each other next Tuesday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.